Imagine this. You're 35,000 feet in the air, cruising over the endless blue of the Pacific Ocean. The sea and sky stretch out to infinity, and everything feels routine. You settle into your seat, maybe with a book or a movie, until suddenly the plane jolts. Turbulence. The seatbelt sign dings, and there's a shift in the cabin's mood. Nervous glances are exchanged. Then, a piercing alarm cuts through the hum of the engines. The cabin crew moves quickly, their calm demeanor barely masking the tension. This is the moment everyone dreads, but few ever think will happen to them. A plane crash over open water is no longer a distant fear. It's happening. Behind the locked cockpit door, the pilots are facing a high-stakes emergency. When something goes wrong over land, options exist. Airports, highways, even open fields can become landing zones. But over the Pacific, it's a completely different story. Pilots must make rapid decisions, checking engines, fuel levels, and searching for the nearest landmass or runway, sometimes hundreds of miles away. Communication becomes another hurdle. Vast stretches of the Pacific are out of radar coverage, meaning pilots often rely solely on onboard systems and satellite signals to coordinate with air traffic control. Out here, the isolation is real, and the margin for error is razor thin. Now let's talk about survival. Most people think a plane crash is almost always fatal, but statistics tell a different story. Over 95% of passengers in U.S. plane crashes survive. However, those numbers are based mostly on crashes over land. Over the ocean, the odds shift dramatically. The initial impact of a crash at sea can be devastating. Water isn't soft. It behaves like a solid surface when hit at high speeds. The fuselage can break apart, and for those inside, the chaos is unimaginable. Yet survival isn't impossible. One extraordinary example is Pan Am Flight 6 in 1956. A propeller malfunction forced the plane to ditch in the middle of the Pacific. Thanks to skilled piloting, the aircraft landed intact on the water, and all 31 people on board survived. Stories like this are rare, but prove that hope isn't lost even in such extreme situations. If you do survive the crash, what happens next? You're alive. But now you're floating in the middle of one of the most remote places on Earth. There's nothing but ocean for miles in every direction, and the clock is ticking. Can you imagine finding yourself in that situation? What would you do? Let us know in the comments. And if you're captivated by stories like this, be sure to like this video and subscribe. We've got plenty more survival scenarios to explore. Next, we'll dive into the critical steps you'd need to take if you found yourself in the water. What tools could save your life, and what are the dangers lurking beneath the waves? Stay tuned. The Pacific Ocean is massive, so massive that it covers 63 million square miles, nearly a third of Earth's surface. It's the largest, most remote body of water on the planet, and crashing here is like disappearing into a void. Picture this. You're floating somewhere in that vast expanse. No landmarks, no visible shoreline, just an endless horizon of water. You're essentially a needle in the world's largest haystack. Except this haystack comes with rip currents, sharks, and freezing temperatures. The moment you hit the water, the ocean becomes your battlefield, and the challenges are immediate. First, there's the risk of drowning. Even with a life vest, the chaos of a crash can leave you disoriented, struggling to get clear of debris or an aircraft sinking into the depths. If you survive that initial scramble, hypothermia becomes the next enemy. The Pacific might seem warm in tropical areas, but even those waters can sap your body heat faster than you'd think. Cold shock and exhaustion can set in within minutes, making every second a fight to stay alive. And then there's the wildlife. Sharks are often the first thing that comes to mind, but the real danger comes from exhaustion and dehydration, problems that set in much faster than an actual predator would. That said, being in open water for hours or days does increase your chances of encountering marine life, and not all of it is harmless. And then there's the waiting. Out here, rescue isn't immediate. Depending on where you crash, it could take hours or even days for help to arrive. Air traffic control may know your approximate location, but pinpointing survivors in the Pacific is an entirely different challenge. The ocean is constantly shifting, with currents carrying you miles away from where you started. Rescuers must contend with these currents, unpredictable weather, and a sheer lack of visibility to find you. This is why survival tools, like signaling devices or life rafts, are critical. Without them, you're just a speck on a never-ending ocean. Did you know that in 2009, Air France Flight 447 disappeared over the Atlantic Ocean? It took 5 days just to locate debris, and that was in a more connected part of the world. Now, imagine the Pacific, far larger, far more isolated. Crashing here is the ultimate test of survival, where every second counts and every decision matters. So, what would you do if you found yourself in this situation? Could you keep your head above water, literally and mentally, long enough to be rescued? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to keep exploring these extreme scenarios with us. In the next section, we'll focus on the survival strategies that could save your life, how to stay afloat, protect yourself, and maximize your chances of being found. Stay tuned. Survival begins the moment you hit the water. The first few minutes are critical, and what you do can mean the difference between life and death. If you've managed to escape the wreckage and avoided serious injuries, the next step is to secure your survival gear. Look for a life raft or flotation devices and grab anything that can help you signal rescuers, flares, a whistle, even a reflective surface to catch the sun. Time is of the essence here. The ocean is unpredictable, and currents can quickly separate you from debris or other survivors. Staying as visible as possible and consolidating resources are your first priorities. Once you've secured flotation, it's all about minimizing risks. Keep your head and chest out of the water as much as possible to stave off hypothermia. If you're in a life raft, avoid getting it wet from splashes or rain, as even warm water will drain your body heat faster than you expect. Experts suggest using the heat escape lessening position, or HELP, which involves tucking your knees to your chest while wearing a life vest. This position helps retain body heat and can buy you precious time. And then there's hydration, a cruel irony when you're surrounded by undrinkable water. Survival kits often include desalination tools or emergency water pouches, but if those aren't available, experts advise conserving your energy and avoiding food to delay dehydration. While the physical challenges are daunting, the mental battle can be just as intense. Imagine the shock of realizing you're completely alone, floating in pitch-black darkness as night falls. Fear and panic are natural, but they can also be dangerous. Studies on survival psychology emphasize the importance of staying calm and focused. It's not just about optimism, it's about taking small, practical steps. Focus on what you can control, even if it's something as simple as staying afloat or checking your supplies. Many survivors of similar disasters credit their ability to compartmentalize fear, staying grounded in the moment instead of letting their minds spiral into despair. One of the most famous stories of ocean survival is that of Poon Lim, a Chinese sailor whose ship was torpedoed during World War II. Lim survived 133 days adrift in the Atlantic on a small wooden raft, relying on sheer resourcefulness. He caught fish with makeshift hooks, collected rainwater, and even battled sharks to protect his supplies. His story is a testament to the power of adaptability and mental resilience, qualities that are essential in such extreme conditions. Would you have what it takes to stay calm, stay afloat, and survive the night in an endless ocean? It's a question no one wants to answer in real life, but it's worth considering. Share your thoughts in the comments below. How do you think you'd handle the mental and physical strain of being stranded at sea? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more insights into survival and resilience. Coming up, we'll take a closer look at how search and rescue operations work and what survivors can do to increase their chances of being found. Stay tuned. Surviving the crash is just the beginning. The Pacific Ocean, vast and beautiful, hides dangers that are silent, relentless, and often invisible until it's too late. The first and most pressing threat? Dehydration. While a person can survive up to 3 weeks without food, you can only last about 3 days without water. Out here, surrounded by salt water, staying hydrated is a battle against time. Drinking seawater isn't an option. It accelerates dehydration, leading to confusion, kidney failure, and ultimately, death. If you don't have a survival kit with desalination tools or water pouches, you'll need to rely on rain. But how often does it rain in the middle of the ocean? The odds aren't in your favor. Then there's the exposure. The Pacific sun is merciless. Without protection, sunburn can become severe, leaving your skin blistered and raw. Add salt water to the equation, and those burns quickly turn into sores, making every movement painful. The constant wetness from waves splashing into a life raft or clinging to your clothes leads to another problem: saltwater sores. These are open wounds that form when salt and friction irritate the skin, and they can easily become infected. Out here, with no antibiotics and no way to clean yourself, even a small sore can spiral into a life-threatening situation. And then, there's the cold. The Pacific can be deceiving. Even in warmer regions, the water saps heat from your body. Hypothermia can sneak up on you, even during the day. And once your core temperature drops, your ability to survive plummets. And let's not forget the wildlife. The ocean is home to some of the most fascinating creatures on Earth, but in a survival scenario, fascination quickly turns to fear. Sharks, for example, are drawn to disturbances in the water. If a crash spreads debris and fuel, the smell can attract them from miles away. While shark attacks are rare, the mere presence of these predators adds another layer of psychological torment. But sharks aren't the only threat. Jellyfish, some nearly invisible in the water, can deliver stings that cause intense pain or even paralysis. And let's not overlook the smaller creatures, fish that nip at exposed skin or parasites that latch on unnoticed. It's these silent killers, dehydration, exposure, infection, and marine life, that make survival in the Pacific so brutally difficult. They don't come with alarms or flashing lights, and they won't end you instantly. Instead, they wear you down over hours, days, even weeks, until your strength is gone. Could you handle the slow, creeping dangers of the ocean? Could you fight off not just the predators in the water, but the ones within your own body? Thirst, infection, and exhaustion? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more gripping survival stories and scenarios. In the next section, we'll explore how search and rescue teams hunt for survivors in the middle of the Pacific, and what you can do to improve your chances of being found. Stay tuned. When a plane goes down over the Pacific, the clock starts ticking. Every second matters, and behind the scenes, An intricate process unfolds as search and rescue teams spring into action. But in a vast ocean with no landmarks, how do they even begin to find you? It's a monumental challenge. The Pacific is so expansive that even with advanced technology, searching for survivors is like finding a needle in an endless, shifting haystack. Rescue missions typically begin with the plane's last known coordinates. Air traffic control and aviation authorities piece together radar data and communication logs to determine where the aircraft might have gone down. This initial estimate becomes the starting point, but it's rarely precise. Ocean currents, winds, and debris dispersal make it incredibly difficult to narrow down the search area. That's where technology steps in. One of the most critical tools is the Emergency Position Indicating Radio Beacon, or EPIRB. These devices send distress signals via satellites, helping rescuers zero in on a survivor's location. If the aircraft or passengers had time to deploy a life raft equipped with an EPIRB or a similar beacon, it drastically increases the chances of being found. But here's the catch. If the beacon is damaged in the crash or submerged in water, it may never transmit. Even with modern tools, the ocean works against rescuers. The Pacific's currents can carry survivors miles from the crash site within hours. Weather conditions can further complicate things, with rough seas, rain, or fog reducing visibility for search planes and ships. And then there's the harsh reality of time. Rescues in remote areas can take hours, sometimes days, to even begin. For survivors battling dehydration, exposure, and injuries, waiting that long can be a death sentence. In fact, the chances of being found drop significantly with each passing day. Despite these challenges, there are stories of miraculous rescues that remind us why people never stop searching. In 2018, a woman named Jennifer Appel and her friend were sailing across the Pacific when their boat's engine failed. They drifted for nearly 5 months before being spotted by a U.S. Navy ship. They survived thanks to a combination of sheer determination and the emergency supplies they had on board. Then there's the incredible case of Air Niugini Flight 73 in 2018, which crash-landed into a lagoon in Micronesia. Thanks to the quick response of nearby fishermen, almost everyone on board was rescued within hours. These stories show that survival is possible, but they also highlight how rare and fragile those chances can be. Could rescuers find you before it's too late? That depends on so many factors: your location, your preparation, and even a bit of luck. But one thing is clear: every step you take to increase your visibility and conserve your energy can make a difference. Let us know in the comments, would you trust yourself to stay calm and hold out for rescue? And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more eye-opening survival scenarios. Coming up, we'll tie everything together with the ultimate question: if you crashed in the Pacific, would you make it out alive? Stay tuned. Surviving a crash in the Pacific isn't just about battling the elements. It's also a war within your own mind. The human brain, when pushed into extreme isolation and fear, can become either your greatest ally or your worst enemy. Imagine being stranded, surrounded by nothing but endless water, day after day. No land in sight, no sign of rescue. The monotony of the horizon, the relentless sun by day, and the pitch-black emptiness at night. This is the psychological battlefield survivors must endure. The first reaction most people experience is shock. In the aftermath of a disaster, your brain struggles to process the enormity of what just happened. Confusion and disbelief can set in, and it's easy to feel paralyzed. But survival depends on moving past this initial state and focusing on immediate, practical needs. Once the adrenaline fades, however, the deeper psychological challenges begin. Isolation is one of the hardest to overcome. Humans are social creatures, and being completely alone, or even stranded with others in total uncertainty, can lead to feelings of hopelessness and despair. Time becomes distorted, and every hour of waiting feels like an eternity. Fear is another constant companion. The unknown, whether it's predators lurking below, the chance of another storm, or simply the question of whether you'll be found, can overwhelm your ability to think clearly. Survivors often talk about the temptation to give up, to let the fear take over. But the ones who make it through share one common trait. They find ways to stay mentally active and hopeful. Experts on survival psychology emphasize the power of small goals. Instead of focusing on the overwhelming task of being rescued, break it down into manageable steps. Stay afloat. Stay hydrated. Signal for help. These small victories can create a sense of control, even in the face of chaos. Hope and determination play an enormous role in survival. The stories of people who've endured similar situations often include moments where they refused to give in, even when the odds were stacked against them. For example, in 2010, sailor Abby Sunderland was stranded in the Indian Ocean after her yacht was damaged during a solo trip around the world. Alone and facing monstrous waves, she stayed calm, rationed her supplies, and trusted that rescuers would eventually find her. Her resilience was key to her survival. What's remarkable about survival stories is the way the human spirit can endure unimaginable challenges. Experts believe that mental resilience, the ability to adapt to stress and remain hopeful, is just as important as physical strength. Techniques like visualization, where you picture yourself being rescued or reunited with loved ones, can be a powerful motivator. It's about finding meaning and purpose, even in the darkest of moments. Can you imagine keeping your hope alive when all you see is water, day after day? Could you find the mental strength to fight despair and focus on survival? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and if you've been inspired by this story, like and subscribe for more content on the power of the human spirit. Up next, we'll bring everything together to answer the ultimate question. Would you survive a crash in the Pacific? Stay tuned. What's hiding beneath the calm, practiced words of the safety briefing? In the unlikely event of a water landing, they begin as though ditching in the ocean is a minor inconvenience. But the truth about surviving a plane crash over open water is far more chilling than those serene demonstrations suggest. Airlines, for understandable reasons, don't want passengers boarding their flights filled with fear. But in doing so, they often gloss over just how difficult survival in the middle of the Pacific can be. Let's start with the statistics. The overall survival rate for plane crashes is often quoted at over 95%, but this figure primarily applies to land-based incidents. Water crashes are an entirely different story. Planes that crash into the ocean at high speeds often break apart upon impact, leaving little time for evacuation. Even if the impact is survivable, passengers face the immediate dangers of drowning, hypothermia, and disorientation. In cases where a controlled water landing is possible, like the famous Miracle on the Hudson, survival rates are significantly higher. But here's the catch. A successful water landing requires calm weather, daylight, and highly skilled pilots, all factors that aren't guaranteed in the middle of the Pacific. Another uncomfortable truth? Airlines don't emphasize survival training because it's impractical and, frankly, unsettling for passengers. Safety briefings focus on basic actions: how to buckle a seatbelt, where to find the exits, and how to inflate a life vest. But in a real crash, many passengers are too panicked or disoriented to recall even these basics. Airlines assume most people won't fully process complex survival strategies in the heat of the moment. so they stick to the essentials. Yet, studies show that passengers who familiarize themselves with safety cards and briefings are far more likely to survive. That tiny extra preparation, knowing where the life rafts are or counting rows to the nearest exit, could save your life. And then there's the issue of equipment. Are modern planes truly prepared for emergencies over the Pacific? While most commercial jets carry life vests, rafts, and signaling devices, the effectiveness of these tools depends on many variables. Life rafts, for instance, must be properly deployed, and if high winds or waves scatter passengers, getting everyone into a single raft becomes a logistical nightmare. Emergency beacons like ELTs, emergency locator transmitters, are designed to aid rescue teams, but these devices can fail if damaged during a crash or submerged in water. While aviation technology has improved dramatically over the years, there's no guarantee that every system will function perfectly in the chaos of an emergency. Perhaps the most unsettling truth of all is how uncharted much of the Pacific remains. Vast stretches of ocean are outside of radar coverage, meaning air traffic controllers lose track of planes once they leave certain zones. While satellite technology has improved tracking in recent years, it's still possible for an aircraft to vanish without a trace. The disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 is a haunting reminder of this. Despite advanced search efforts, the plane's resting place has never been fully determined, leaving countless questions unanswered. So, why don't airlines talk more about these risks? It's simple. They don't want to scare passengers. Flying remains statistically one of the safest ways to travel, and focusing on worst-case scenarios would only heighten fear without necessarily improving preparedness. But that doesn't mean passengers shouldn't educate themselves. Knowing the harsh realities of ocean crashes and taking even small steps, like studying the safety card or packing extra survival tools, could make all the difference. What do you think? Should airlines be more transparent about the realities of survival over open water, or would that cause unnecessary fear? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're finding this video eye-opening, be sure to like and subscribe. In the final section, we'll tie everything together and ask the ultimate question. If the unthinkable happened to you, would you have what it takes to survive? Stay tuned.